Steve Jobs, who worked at Atari, took that to Apple. What was revolutionary about Atari is we focused on outcomes. If you didn't want to come in to work until noon and work till midnight, fine. Didn't matter. Outcomes. Outcomes, outcomes, outcomes.
如果要講遊戲大師，你會諗起邊個呢？小島秀夫、渡船敬二，但呢一個人呢，先係殿堂級嘅遊戲大師，甚至連 Steve Jobs 都幫佢打過工。咁佢就係 Atari 遊戲公司創辦人之一 Nolan Bushnell。呢一隻 game 就算你未玩過，都應該有見過㗎啦。Nolan 同佢嘅 partner 喺1972年開發，風靡全球嘅遊戲 Pong， 其後咧仲推出咗空 Pong 家用遊戲機，係最早批出現嘅家用遊戲機之一啊。而佢所創立嘅公司 Atari 喺70年代咧更加稱霸遊戲界，推出過多款經典遊戲。今年已經80歲嘅佢，仍然積極推展遊戲新科技。唔知佢又點睇而家同埋未來嘅遊戲發展，同佢以前做遊戲又有咩分別呢？
The early games were simple because we had to focus on gameplay and timing and things like that because the graphics were so crappy. When we did Pong, it had a square ball. Not that we thought a square ball was cool. It's all we could do. Just because a game is not attractive to a million people doesn't mean that I should disenfranchise the 100 that particularly like that game. The early games were actually not von Neumann architecture. Von Neumann means software and a IP stack. They were actually state machines. They were basically very complex signal generators. And so in a lot of ways, the technology that I brought to the video game business wasn't a software-driven thing. We actually started the video game business before the microprocessor had been invented. I did the first video game in 1970. The microprocessor was not good enough to do a video game until 1976 with the 6502. I've often said my main contribution is that I started the video game business 6 years earlier.
相比起以前，佢覺得而家做遊戲嘅分別就在於玩家們嘅 expectation 啦。除咗玩法、趣味性重要之外，玩家都會 expect 一隻 game 咧一定要有靚嘅 graphics、聲效等等嘅外在嘢。當問到要點樣先可以做到一隻令人上癮嘅遊戲，咁佢就係咁覺得嘅。
The one thing you want in a game is predictability. If you have things that are not predictable, it's not fun. You feel cheated. Second thing you don't want to do is you don't want timing to kill you. So you crank up the time until you fail. It's not good. What you want to do is you want someone to fail because they got greedy and tried to reach too hard. For example, Pong divided the paddle into various things. So if you hit it on the edge, the tip of the paddle, it would go obliquely, which was the hardest to return. But it was also the place where if you were just not quite right, you'd miss it. So it had a balance between risk and reward. And that's what you always want. You want to balance risk and reward. And video games can have some of that, where every time you play it, you learn a little bit more about that world, about that ecosystem. I'd like to draw this line that there are movies and there are games. Pong was a game. Not much story there. And then you come here and there's more and more story and a lot of the stuff, we're getting really, really close. And I believe that we shouldn't limit ourselves just to video games.
之前都有好多新聞講到 AI 同 ChatGPT 令到唔少人飯碗不保，咁唔知佢哋遊戲界又擔唔擔心呢？
When it's cheap to develop a game, you get more innovation. When it gets expensive, they tend to be repetitive because of the risk involved. Now, here's the promise. Regenerative AI is going to drastically drop the cost of developing an A-list title. So what used to cost $200 million, I will predict that in 2 years, a group of 3 using AI we'll be able to create the equivalent of a $200 million game for less than $100,000. And that's when innovation and weirdness will come to play. And that's good for the world. My youngest son has a game called Escape Academy. He said that right now, ChatGPT has accelerated his development by 3 times. All he has to do is create the right query, and Chat gives him the code that he just cuts and pastes in. Done. So it's happening right now.
唔單止係 AI，佢都相信 Web3、BlockChain 等等嘅新科技咧係遊戲界嘅未來。
Blockchain gives rise to the fact that many times owning is an illusion. If you've won a skin or a weapon in a game, do you own it? The answer is no. It's illusion of ownership. But if that company goes away, it's gone. And I can guarantee you, 20 years from now, every game that you have won something from is going to be gone. It will not be supported. So if you want to own something 20 years from now, it better be an NFT or a blockchain, or it will not be there. The NFT is an expression of owning an intellectual asset. Gaming, can you own a win? Can you be rewarded for a win automatically? And the answer is, with blockchain, yes.
Nolan 就覺得 blockchain 同埋 NFT 可以令到以前遊戲入面嘅虛擬獎勵同埋名銜擁有現實世界嘅價值之外，佢亦都覺得咧 Web3 遊戲長遠嚟講，比起傳統嘅 Web2 遊戲更加安全同更有保障，因為大家喺遊戲入面都有名有姓，有晒記錄，就好似喺現實世界同真人競技咁，會有翻基本嘅 courtesy， 亦都可以避免一啲玩家恃住自己喺虛擬世界，以為做衰嘢冇人知啊。至於點解而家嘅 Web3 遊戲好似永遠都做唔起，佢就覺得而家嘅 Web3 遊戲好多時咧都缺少咗遊戲一定要有趣嘅元素，只係一堆以目標為本嘅挖礦遊戲。咁雖然係咁，但佢仍然都覺得 Web3 遊戲係遊戲界嘅下一步。
Web3 is very new, and is it going to expand and develop? Absolutely. It's very easy to throw rocks at new technologies because it's a beta or an alpha. You know, it hasn't stood the test of time, and yet it started because there was an idea of a way to make certain things better. The fact that it hasn't fulfilled it now doesn't really matter. It will.
換生活，樂科技，UNWIRE.HK